That's where Aruch HaShulchan starts on that. We'll get to him. All right. So, grab this one so I can see both of them. Okay. So we started a new simon this morning. Reish Ayin Vav, Dinei Ner Shehid Likeina Yehudi B'Shabbos. The laws of a candle that is lit by a non-Jew on Shabbos. So you know that in our world now we have like before a video goes on the news, now they have to give you like a trigger warning, you know. So I give you a warning that some of the things you're going to hear might make you uncomfortable. Not that's like anything inappropriate. It's that's there are some pretty cut and dry rules about the topic of Amir L'Nochrim, of having an non-Jew do things for you on Shabbos. And I want to make reference here, but as we begin, for those of you who have been in the shir for some years already, you'll remember that we've been learning Hilchot Shabbat now for quite a long time. So when we started Hilchot Shabbat back on Reish Mem Beis, if I'm not mistaken.
How long ago was that?
It was. I remember that we started at a time when I almost feel like it was remote, or we had just come off of sort of remote learning. It's been a while, and we learned some of the early simanim in Hilchot Shabbos about some topics that relate to Amir L'Nochri. We had some that related to businesses which are shared, where you have a sharecropper, let's say. And we talked about how if they're let's say a kablan, I pay them to do a job, not to do the job necessarily on Shabbos, but they can do it anytime they want. And if they choose to do it on Shabbos, okay, so I don't have to stop them. If I drop off my suit to be cleaned to the dry cleaner on a Thursday or a Friday, and they choose to clean it on Shabbos, well, that's their choice. I didn't force them to clean it on Shabbos. I just wanted my suit to be dry cleaned. So those are things that are permissible. But there was happening, and I'm benefiting on Shabbos. Yeah, sorry, what was that?
There was a but to that. There was a however to that. If you dropped it off, like an hour before Shabbos, and you wanted it Saturday night or early Sunday morning, you can't do that.
Yes, correct. So the exception to the rule in that situation was if I gave the non-Jew no choice but to do it on Shabbos. Right then, I think exactly like Hinda's case. I dropped something off by them, whether it's, let's say, you drop off your car to be repaired 10 minutes before Shabbos starts. Yeah, I need this, but I need this. Saturday evening it needs to be ready. I have a trip I have to go on. I'm going to come pick it up. Leave the key in the car. Just fix it, and I'll come pick it up here in the lot. And I'll pay you afterwards. No problem. And you work it out. What you've done is you have forced a non-Jew to do work for you on Shabbos. That is not okay. If they choose on their own accord to do it on Shabbos, but they had other options, then it was mutter. We talked about things in that realm. Hopefully that triggers some memory for those of you who have been in the shir for a few years. You remember that topic. So I promised you, I said, don't worry, there are more topics about Amir L'Nochri. I said, we'll get there in a couple of years, and here we are. Baruch Hashem. So now we see that while that was talking about things done for you on Shabbos, there is a big difference now coming. And Aruch HaShulchan really spells it out so beautifully, because he mentions there were things that came up previously, like I just mentioned. But we're about to talk about situations where there's no chiluk, where the non-Jew, there is going to be basically no exception. The non-Jew cannot do things for you, and that's even if it's even if the non-Jew did it letovas atzmo, even if the non-Jew did it for himself. Okay, because in the case where he wanted to repair my car over Shabbos, I gave it to him on Thursday. He repairs it on Shabbos, and I pick it up on Sunday or Monday. I didn't force the repair to be done on Shabbos. And he did it for his own benefit. It helped him. He wanted to finish his job and be in the position to get paid. But here we're going to see that the cases we're going to deal with, there is going to be essentially no exception to the rule. We'll talk about the exceptions because there are exceptions, but we're going to start with a blanket assumption that there are no exceptions, that there's a rule where they can't do anything. And the reason for this is because the Jew is going to get a direct benefit on Shabbos from the malacha. Meaning the benefit will accrue to them directly on Shabbos. When my car is repaired over Shabbos, the benefit doesn't accrue to me on Shabbos. The benefit accrues to me on the weekdays. So this is going to be the differentiation between some of the earlier cases we saw in Hilchot Shabbat, where the benefit that accrues to me is a weekday benefit, even though it was done on Shabbos. And now we're going to talk about what happens if the benefit were to accrue to me on Shabbos. They do something for me, and I benefit on Shabbos itself. And that's where we're going to run into a very different standard in terms of Amir al-Anocher, of asking a non-Jew to do something for me. Yes, Simeon, go ahead.
Rav, it's obvious, for example, that I can't hire somebody to come in and paint my house on Shabbos.
Right.
But supposing Friday night we finish eating and I've got a lot of dishes, and I'm going to need those dishes again for the second Shabbos meal, which would, let's say, be lunch.
Yep.
So here is a task which a Jew is permitted to do himself.
Yes.
To clean those dishes so he would have adequate cutlery and things for the Shabbos meal.
Absolutely.
Can I hire a Nachri to perform or to help in the performance of that permissible act on Shabbos?
So long as you're not hiring them just for Shabbos, let's say they're getting paid in a larger for a larger sum of hours worked. They worked on Thursday, they worked on Friday, they worked on Saturday, they worked on. Okay, so I paid them. I mean, like it's a separate problem. The answer to your question is fundamentally yes. If I can do it, I can have a non-Jew do it. If I can't do it, I can't have a non-Jew do it. And the question about the only question in your situation is about the schar, about the payment method. And that when we dealt with that, which is like they have to be schar b'havla, has to be as part of a larger group. I can't just pay them for hours only on Shabbos, as a part of a larger package, which is often usually the case with help in the home. People, come and they work not just a shift on Shabbos for a certain amount of hours, and I'll pay you per the hour on Shabbos. But rather, they're hired throughout the week, throughout the month, even if you say you only have them on that Shabbos. So they'll ask them to do something for you a little bit before Shabbos, and so you pay them for both things, and you have your havla that it's not only a Shabbos schar. That's a derabbanan problem, and that's a derabbanan workaround. But fundamentally, what the case that you're describing is it's fine, and that's an important rule. Just as we read Sif Aleph now, if I can do it on Shabbos, I can ask a non-Jew to do it. If I cannot do it, I'm not permitted. The general rule is going to be I cannot ask a non-Jew to do it, which flies in the face of a lot of the things that sometimes we see, and sometimes we didn't even see in this building, because there are different. We're going to get to it in this siman. There are sometimes different standards when it comes to what's called a mitzvah derabim, a mitzvah that is of the public, where we will have an exception. There are exceptions to the rule that I just laid out. It's not completely a blanket rule, but it is the fallback in most situations. We'll see a couple of exceptions today. Yes. Yeah. It's a one-time thing or something like that.
One-time thing. Hires help, with a reassurance of cleaning, whatever. You're not paying them for anything else except for that.
Right.
event.
So if we ever have like a babysitter or something like that on Shabbos on a Friday night. So my go-to is always that I pay them for their time that they spent with me on the phone asking them to be a babysitter. That took time out of their day. It took 2-3 minutes, and they earn a little schar. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Chooses to use hot water. So we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that case. I don't know if today we'll get to it, but that's an excellent question. I'll give away in case it's helpful for you. The short answer is that's permissible. That's permissible because as long as they have a permissible way to do it, if they choose to do it for themselves, because that's not a benefit that accrues to you. As long as my dishes are clean, they could have cleaned it in this way. They chose to clean it that way. So there wasn't actually a benefit that accrued to me. And therefore that's going to be permissible because they chose for their own sake. They didn't want their skin to get cracked from the cold water or whatever, right? And that's that's a little bit more only because of there's another step there of hashmas kol or whatever. But we will deal with this. We'll deal with that general category of it's permissible, but in certain ways. That's right. Simeon brought up the dishes. He got into it. Okay, all right. Let's take a look at Sif Aleph. Here we go. Reish Ayin Vav. Eino Yehudi shehidlik es haner b'shvil Yisrael aser lakol. Afilu mi shelo hudlak b'shvilo. It's overflowing over there. The coffee. Okay. Thank you, Jeffrey. Oh boy. Okay. I guess it kept going. Okay. Sorry about that. So a non-Jew who lights a candle for a Jew. That candle, to benefit from that candle, is prohibited for everyone, and that means not just the one for whom it was lit, but for any Jew, even for even if it wasn't lit for him. So a non-Jew, by the way, this has happened to me. Okay, sometimes I've been in the library downstairs on Shabbos, the lights are off, and some of our staff walks by and say, "Do you need me to turn on the light?" And I said, no, I don't need the light. It's fine. I'm good. I can see. Don't worry. I'm good. Thank you so much, but I'm good. So, because if a non-Jew, even if you're not asking for it, lights the light for you, they did a malacha for you. And that in and of itself is already a problem. Not even if I didn't ask. Right. They might just turn it on without asking you. Correct. We're going to talk about what happens if they actually put it on. Now, what do I do? But certainly, you should not ask. And if you have an opportunity to say don't, you should. Okay? You're right. Richie, for those of you who are on Zoom, maybe you didn't hear it. Richie pointed out sometimes they'll just do it without you even noticing, right? So we'll talk about what happens if that in that situation. Okay? Now, ve'ein chiluk bazeh bein katzav lo sachar o lo katzav. There's no differentiation here whether or not you have stipulated a payment with this non-Jew or no payment. Are they working for you or are they not working for you? Maybe their job. Maybe, and whether I have hired them at the kablanus, I hired you. Your job. I'm so wealthy that I can hire you. Your job in my house is just to turn on lights. Like that's like, and it doesn't matter if it's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Saturday. Your job is to be the guy who turns on lights when there are lights that need to be turned. The Shabbos guy, and whether you need you 10 times, one time, no times, you'll get paid. Your job is to be the light turner honor, okay? Or you're hired b'schirus. That's a kabbalah. Schirus means that you're paid, a price for. I hired you for the week. And your job for this week is to turn on lights in my house. You're on lights. Okay, now it seems like a ridiculous case because it probably is. I can't imagine somebody being hired for just such a task. But as Richie pointed out, he said this is like what we always talk about the Shabbos goy, right? Like this is what we always want them to do: turn on the lights. The Shabbos goy is a problem. Okay, so sorry, newsflash to the world. No. So here we have a problem. Why? Because look what the Ramah says. Because the Jew has benefited from a malacha that was done, on its own on Shabbos. Asur b'chol inyan. This is prohibited in any situation, right? There's no way you can benefit. Paid, not paid, they're shaykh to, they're not shaykh to you. You might know their name, you might not know who their name is. If they're doing this for you, you cannot benefit from that light. Now, Let's read the Mishnah Berurah here, Aleph through Dalet. Then we'll talk about already an exception case. Okay, then the Shulchan Aruch already started to describe some exceptions when I can use a light. Okay, so know that it's not 100% this rule, but it's the default. Okay, unless you have an exception, then that's the default. You cannot benefit. Now, Sif Aleph, very important. Sif Kotan Aleph, very important comment here from the Mishnah Berurah. Very important comment. He says shehidlik, okay? V'hu adin l'chol malacha sheyasa ha'en ha'yehudi b'Shabbos b'shvil Yisrael. V'aser l'kol lehanos mizeh. This is not just when it comes to lighting candles, but turning on lights. This is any malacha. This is the rule for any malacha that a non-Jew performs for a Jew. They do it for you. Then it's prohibited for all to benefit from this. For all. Okay. Now, when can there's a side comment here, number 2 in my extra comments, which I know Jeffrey and Tom, you have that addition. When can I benefit? Is there a time that I can benefit from this malacha at some point? And we're going to there's a much larger topic about this that will come up. I don't think it's going to come up in this soon. I think it's going to come up down the road. The laws of Hamir are scattered throughout Hilchot Shabbat. But this idea that you cannot benefit from it until Motzai Shabbos b'chdei shiyasu, until after Shabbos ends. The time that it would have taken for this malacha to have been done for you after Shabbos. So let's say there was a baking involved. This is where it comes up most often, like where this really can be very practical, right? Let's say exactly right. So by the way, I used to work when I was a rabbinic intern. I was in Highland Park. They have a Dunkin' Donuts, a kosher Dunkin' Donuts in Highland Park, New Jersey. One day we should be zeichet to such a thing here, but you know, they were open on Shabbos, and they baked the donuts and they baked all the things, the bagels too, on Shabbos. There you might say that they weren't baking it for Jews. They're baking it for any customer. Highland Park is not an exclusively Jewish neighborhood. It's Jews, non-Jews. You know, but you can imagine if you have a bakery in a very heavy, densely populated Jewish area, right? Let's say in Eretz Yisrael. Right? And the bakery, remember the guy who owns the bakery employs, or let's say there was a non-Jewish owned bakery in this very heavily populated Jewish neighborhood, or they only open on Saturday night. Why would a restaurant only open on a Saturday night? Because they want to open up for Jewish business, right? In the 5 towns, whatever it is, right? So let's say the non-Jewish worker comes in, he owns the business, he wants to like great neighborhood to open up on a Saturday night, opens up the business, starts baking things 1 hour before Shabbos ends. Can I, as a Jew, come in and eat that whatever 1 minute after Shabbos ends? So Shabbos is over. I'm not benefiting anymore. So I'm benefiting for so I have to wait. The rule is I have to wait. The time it would take to bake a donut, to bake a bagel, to bake the pizza. You know, I have to wait that amount of time until after Shabbos to benefit from that. So the time it takes to light the fire in the oven, so I have to wait all that time until after Shabbos. So I know in Highland Park they told people like wait a certain amount of time just for a bagel. I got from the oven on it. So they used to tell them to wait a certain amount of time. Forget now what after Shabbos. Don't eat it right away. Wait a certain amount of time b'chdei shiyasu before you start to benefit from that. Now I don't think that was an extra chumrah because I don't think. Once it's being done for non-Jews and Jews, whoever comes in, then I don't think you have to wait because the malacha wasn't done for the Jew. So there's no kanas in that situation. Now let's keep going here.
I think
Yeah, go ahead, Jeffrey, and then Sammy. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
You were going to comment on point number 1 because I see this all the time. Which says it's the same thing if a child does it. If a child does it.
If a child does it, it's worse. A child does it, it's worse. You know why?
Child does what?
Because it says it in the Torah. Ata uvincha uvitecha abdecha. You can't have your child, your son, or your daughter do malacha. It's in the pasuk.
You can't have a child.
You can't do malacha for me on Shabbos. You can't do malacha for your son.
3-year-old.
Right? They'll take the child. Say the child, you do it. That's actually a doraisa. If what they're doing is a doraisa.
What if you by accidentally turn on the light?
What was that? Then you could benefit after Shabbos, not on Shabbos, I think.
Wait.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, on Shabbos. Because I think that On Shabbos, I don't think you could benefit because that was cooked on Shabbos. The malacha is done on Shabbos. You're not allowed to benefit from. Even if they had that. Now, the difference is that right after Shabbos is over, you could pour yourself a cup of coffee, though. You don't have to wait the time that it took to boil the water. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you can have it. I don't think you can have it. Yeah, correct. I acknowledge that. I don't think so because you're benefiting from the malacha that was on Shabbos. Right. So we're going to talk about right. So let's
For himself.
right. I think that in that situation it's going to be a little different because you're benefiting sort of from the goof of the malacha. Here, when it comes to light, we're going to see the little. So by the light, if the non-Jew lights the light for themselves, then we're going to allow you to benefit from it. So let me think about your case. Maybe I'm being too machmir right off the bat here.
What was the question?
Okay. So Rich, and then Simeon, I know you wanted to ask a question. So Richie had asked, what if you go to a hotel and then you're in a hotel over Shabbos, and it's not in Israel, so it's not like you're making the coffee was made for Jews. But let's say there's some coffee that was made on a Shabbos morning by a non-Jew for the hotel. And it's not really meant for Jews. It's like, most of the guests are non-Jews. Can you then pour yourself a cup of fresh coffee made on Shabbos? Under such a circumstance. So let me think about it, because there are actually ways, permissible ways. I'm going back to what you talked about before, to make fresh coffee on Shabbos. There are permissible ways to do that. So perhaps if they chose to make it in such a way, especially if they're not doing it for you, I wonder. I'm going to back off of my being machmir right off the bat, and I'm going to think about it. I'm not quite yet ready to be lenient, but you can't do malach on Shabbos, like lighting a candle on Shabbos. Can't cook food on Shabbos. Okay. Yeah, essentially, that's the colloquial way of putting it. Yeah, Simeon, what did you want to ask before?
Well, your back off that you just articulated was in the direction of the question that I have, because when we did the actual learning in the Shulchan Aruch itself, the Ramah points out very aptly that the Isur is not on somebody doing the work for you. The Isur is on you deriving Hana.
Right. Correct.
From work
Correct.
that
Correct.
was done. So,
right.
so I'm not comfortable with how we're learning it, and I'm not comfortable with the back off. I don't know how to do it. If the pizza store makes pizza all the time, and for Jews and non-Jews, he's got a hechsher, whatever, and comes right after Shabbos, and he goes into the pizza store, and 5 minutes, 3 minutes after Shabbos, 3 minutes after Havdalah, and he orders a slice of pizza. According to the Ramah, that is clearly asur.
So we didn't finish this, Olive. So I'm gonna refrain from answering. We're gonna answer it. I'm gonna refrain from answering until we read the continuation of the Shulchan Aruch, because that will help us answer this question. I promise you. Because there are times that it is permissible, and the one that what you just described, I believe, falls under that category of where it will be permissible to benefit. That's going to be even benefiting on Shabbos with the light situation. I want to think about the food situation for just a moment, or at least for a day or a week before I then give a clearer stack on that one. All right, now. Let's take a look at, sorry, we're just finishing Sif Aleph, Ein Le'el, Simon Ration and Beis, Sif Beis, Inyan Kablanus. That was what we talked about, where we talked about situations where you set up a Kablanus situation where your job is to be the candle lighter in my house, something like that. Right. And that's, there are permissible circumstances there, and also situations when that doesn't, right. And by the way, actually, if you look at number 3, for those of you who have that edition, if they give you some notes of what happens over there, and that's in Simulation and Bays. And so I'm just reading this from my extra notes. There it's talking about speaking to a non-Jew, that certain things you can't tell them. Not the Isser Hana from the non-Jewish work. This is Simeon's point, right? That there's that Isser Hana from Meleches Achri. Okay? And Vayitachen shibmokom hamilim sif beis, shibmokom hamilim sif beis, sarich la'agia sif daled. Okay, he thinks that I shouldn't say sif beis, I should say sif daled, where it says in the Shulchan Aruch that if a nochri sews a beged, sews clothing on Shabbos for a Jew as a kablan, I gave them to them before Shabbos at some point Thursday. I gave them can you fix this up? Can you sew this for me? They sew it on Shabbos, and then they return it to me on Shabbos. I didn't force them to return to the melacha or even return it to me. So mutar Yisrael lo Shabbos Shabbos. The Shulchan Aruch said that was permissible, but the Ramah was cholek, and he said no, you can't wear the sewn beged on Shabbos unless there was a shas hatzorech, like you great need. This is where my coffee situation comes in a little bit, right? They did it for you, or whatever. Like, yeah.
They didn't do it for a Jew.
Sorry, right. Sorry, you're right. Sorry, you're right. You're right. This wasn't there. Yeah, correct. You're right. Correct. So I need to get back to you on that one. Okay. So that's a different situation there because that's a kablan. That's a paid job. And there's a machlokas. Can I use it? Can I not use it on Shabbos? I was never intending to get it back on Shabbos. They brought it to my door. There was if I finished here, you could have it. Can I now put it on Shabbos? So there was at least the machlokas, but I didn't force them to do it on Shabbos. Here, this malacha was done on Shabbos, and we're talking about benefiting from the malacha that's done on Shabbos. Okay, now let's go to Sif Katan Beis, Sif Katan Beis has Asr, and this is prohibited for everybody. What level of Isser is this? This is Asr Midrabanan. This is a rabbinic rule. Why do the rabbis prohibit you from benefiting? Because if I did benefit, then in the future, you know what I would do? I would hire a Shabbos. I would get a Shabbos guy every time. I would say to them, oh, it's mutter to benefit. So, hey, can you light this candle for me? Can you light this? Can you turn this on for me? And so the rabbi said, we don't want you to do that. It's not in the spirit of Shabbos. Even though telling a non-Jew to do something on Shabbos is itself only the Rabbanan, it desecrates the spirit of Shabbos. Things are being done all around you that you yourself shouldn't do. So don't benefit from it because otherwise you're going to get into the habit of going over to a non-Jew and saying, can you turn this on? Can you do that?
Can you tell him on Friday before Shabbos?
It's a great question. So we're going to get to that. The short answer is no. Okay?
What was the question?
Yair had asked, can you ask the non-Jew before Shabbos to do it on Shabbos? At the end of the day, it's that you're going to be nehena. You're going to benefit from the malacha that's done on Shabbos by the non-Jew, even though you say, oh, but I didn't tell them on Shabbos. But that's here the difference between amira l'nochri. That's a separate problem of telling them on Shabbos to do something wrong, and being nehena mimeleches nochri and just benefiting from the malacha that's done. We're sort of stringent on both accounts. Yeah.
You bring down a suit to the desk. You say, I need this clean first. If you bring it before 9, we'll have it back to you by 5.
Okay.
5 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday, no suit.
Right.
Okay. You ask us, we'll have to do tomorrow morning.
Right.
I think
to wear it on Shabbos.
At least. So Richie asked the question: what if you asked your front desk of your hotel on a Friday morning at 9 o'clock to send your suit out for dry cleaning, but I need it back by 5 o'clock today, and you show up at 5 and they're not there.
Saturday morning is better for them, not because.
Right. It's an interesting circumstance because I didn't force them to do malacha on Shabbos, but
I know
for sure that they're going to do it on Friday, on Shabbos, because they failed to get it done by the time that I asked them to do it. But now the question is that given that I did the malach on Shabbos, can I benefit from it? That's the question of the Shulchan Aruch and Ramah about can I wear it now?
Sure.
That's the question. Right. So that's an Eisat Tzorech. I don't have anything else to wear. So maybe that's what the Ramah, even the Ramah would be lenient. Right. So maybe the Ramah, that's a situation where you could be lenient.
By the way, and the other thing is, in Sivkat Abed, it says, so Yomer Lo Lahadlik, right? You tell him to light it. So I see all the time people say to an Akbar, they'll say, oh, it's very dark.
We're gonna get to this. This is my favorite
Right,
pet. This is my pet peeve in halacha. The hinting. We're gonna get to the hinting. The hint is I actually know where it comes from. It's actually something mentioned in the Mishnah Berurah, and some of my rebbeim thought this a big misunderstanding actually. And if you're very careful here about looking at these laws, like wait a minute, how does hinting help? Even if I didn't ask him to do something, it's author. So the hinting is going to become. We're gonna get to the hinting, not today, but we're gonna get to it. Simeon, yes.
Yeah, the question that you're asked and you answered is right directly on this. The Isur is not the fact that you spoke to the Eino Yehudi Beremizus and he would go and although you told him backhand, the Isur is on you, the Jew, benefiting from an act that was performed on Shabbos.
For the Jew. I'll just add those.
Yes, for the Jew.
Right. Yes, correct. Everything you said, I agree. That 100%. Let's take a look at Gimel now. Mishnah Berurah, Sivkat on Gimel, Afilu v'chula. Here we go. Ready? Even if you weren't the Jew who it was lit for, it was lit for Yankel. I happen to now walk into the room and Yankel says, "I'm sorry, you have to leave the room too because you see this. It was lit for me." Sorry, you can't actually. So. It's not like a situation of something which was brought for him from outside of the tchum, from outside of the boundary on Shabbos, where then if another person were to benefit from it, that would be mutter. There we're lenient. If an item is brought from chutz l'tchum for me, I can't benefit from it, but Tommy can benefit from that item that was brought from me chutz l'tchum. As we'll say, that is something we'll talk about when we get to Shin Chaf Hey in about 5 years from now. Okay? Because I told you the laws of Amir Lonach are all over Hilchot Shabbat. That's a Sif Ches over there. The Tchum and Durabanan. Why? Because the whole halacha of Tchum is it is a machlokas. We seem to hold that Tchum is Durabanan. The violation of the laws of Tchum is Durabanan. V'chein kol iser Durabanan she'osa eino Yehudi b'shvil Yisrael. And so to any prohibition that is rabbinic in nature. Now, this is a very important line also. File this one away. If the nature of the prohibition is rabbinic in nature, okay, then it is mutter la'acher shlo nasa bishvilo. Then other people can benefit from it if it was done not for them. Other Jews can benefit even if it was done for a Jew. Another Jew, that Jew he cannot, but another Jew can if it was only an Issa de Rabbanan. So lighting a candle is to d'oraisa. So now we get into fun territory. What about turning on LED lights? That's not a d'oraisa. The LED lights are not the d'oraisa. They don't have a filament. They work in a very different nature than a candle or an incandescent light bulb.
I didn't know that.
LEDs? Yeah, LEDs don't have any glowing hot metal. So that's not a d'oraisa. Those days it's a rabbanon. So if it's lit for me, because they saw I was struggling in the room, and they go, then it is a derabanan, correct, or derabanan. So now the other people can benefit. Hold on, I just need to see. I just saw something I need to do for 2 seconds. Okay, sorry, I saw that my wife. Okay, now we're good. Okay. Not 100%. We're gonna get to it. It has to be b'mokom mitzvah or b'mokom tzorach gadol. Okay, so so anyway, so this is an important rule. So when it's there are other people can benefit. Okay, now let's take a look at Sif Katan Daled. Now this is whether or not you stipulated or from a price with them. I worked out. A certain number, you might pay. You're paid. You're a kabbalah, whatever it is. Bein kotzav hainu me'erev Shabbos. Whether I stipulated with them even before Shabbos. See, Yair's point a moment ago. Erev Shabbos, I make a deal with them. This is your job in my house. And so it appears that we won't say in our situation. I paid him to be the guy who turns on lights. Okay, and I'm turning it on because you told me I'm always hired to turn on lights. Whatever is necessary, I turn on lights. Whatever day of the week, I get paid to turn on lights. Okay, we won't say, well, he did it for his own accord because that's his job. I want to get paid for it, so I turned it on. You know why? Because every time I turn on the lights, I get. It's like a dividend. Like I get $1 every time I turn on a light. That's helpful for you. So he did it for himself. No, we won't say that in this situation. Whereas other situations, we will say that, right? The dry cleaning situation, we will say that, right? They chose to do the malach on Shabbos because they wanted to get paid. They wanted to finish their job, so they wanted to be able to be in a situation to make money. Okay, this is not the situation here. Even if they are paid. Because I'm directly benefiting right away on Shabbos, it's a very different situation. Now let's go back up into the Shulchan Aruch, finishing the second half here. Oh no, sorry, I have to do Hay. Sorry. Sif Katan Hay. Osha Asa, or they are a kabbalah, or there's a schirus agreement. I'm paying you for the day, I'm paying you for the week, right? So it's a time thing, not a job. Kabbalah is I pay you for the job. Schirus is I pay you for a certain time. Okay. Who perish lemasha amar mitchila bein kotza? This is explaining. He's saying that this phrase of whether it's a kabbalah or it's a schirus, this is explaining bein kotzav or bein lo kotzav, the earlier phrase. Alzeh sha'amar bein hakitzva haisa bekablanos so b'schirus. Whether the stipulation of the agreement, is a kabbalah agreement or a schirus agreement, and whether it's by the job or by the time. The kablanos mikre hecha shescharo stam lahadlik lo ner be'eis sheyitzarech, and a kablanos agreement here would mean that I'm paying you for every time that you need to light that a candle needs to be lit. The kotzav lo mikol hadlaka davar kotzav. For every time you light, you get paid a certain fixed amount. Uschirus mikre, and what is schirus called? Kishenosemo b'chol yom kach v'kach. For every day that you do this, you get paid kach v'kach. You get paid such and such amount. Okay?
No,
not okay. Go ahead, Simeon. What's not okay?
No, it's the same thing. The Jew is benefiting.
All what we mentioned is not allowed. Go ahead.
The Jew is benefiting.
Yeah, correct. That's why he's saying this is not allowed. He's just saying,
okay.
Yeah, this is all not allowed. He's just explaining that phrase of so more understanding of how to. Yeah. Okay. Now let's go back up on top. Here are our exceptions. We start with the exceptions now. In my edition, it's the third line of the Shulchan Aruch, right after the Ramaz As B'chol Inyan piece. Aval in hidliko litzarko. But if the non-Jew lights the light, lights the candle for himself. He didn't do it for me. I wasn't even in the room. He was lighting it for himself. He wanted to be able to read something. He lights the candle for himself. It's Shabbos. Or he lights it, the non-Jew lights the candle for a Jew who is sick, even if he is not in danger, but he is sick.
It's not a life-saving situation.
Right. But we'll talk about this in a moment. Actually, let's keep going, and then I'll come back to the chol she'ein bo sakana. Obviously, if there is a sakana, even a Jew could do it.
Docha Shabbos.
Right. But even if it's an ein bo sakana situation, a non-Jew, the halacha is another exception. A non-Jew can do malacha for your benefit because you're chol she'ein bo sakana. There's a question about can they do it's a whole statement about refuah and asking a non-Jew, and the question is can they do a malacha do raisa, and then I benefit from it? Can I, there are a little bit of levels here in terms of what where the comfort level is, but let's just go with a generic here. You're a chol she'ein bo sakana. And they could do, right, they're lighting here, in this situation, they're lighting a candle for you. Yeah. This is as bad as it could be. They're doing a dol raisa for you. Oh, tzorech tanim. The non-Jew does something for a katan, right? For a minor. Dehu kechol she'ein bo sakana. In halacha, is treated as a chol she'ein bo sakana. So the child on Shabbos, by the way, it's fantastic. It's in my extra notes here. I don't think it was in the Aruch HaShulchan. I think it was in my extra notes. Talks about what if a child is afraid of the dark. A 3-4-year-old child, terrified of the dark, won't be able to sleep. Right? So a katan is considered like a chol she'ein bo sakana. So to ask a non-Jew to maybe do something to fix the situation, we're going to see, is perhaps permissible. Okay, because a katan is a category of a chol she'ein bo sakana, though we don't love to use that heter.
It's like, let's say the lights are on.
Yeah.
You told me that, like, if you someone is asleep and the lights are on,
So we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that situation. But that's also different because there, the turning off of a light is a derabana. So that might be a situation where you have a derabana done in a derabana where you ask a non-Jew to turn off the lights. The derabana on top of a derabana, b'malkom mitzvah of odek shaz, be able to sleep. That will be a case where it's permissible because it's a double derabbanan, b'malkom mitzvah or b'malkom tzorech gadol. Okay. Yes, Aviva. That's a shinoi, and that might be allowed when it's a double derabbanan. We have to be very careful to use that heter. I'm not. We should always ask your Abba before you do that. Okay. All right. All right. So let's keep going back in the Shulchan Aruch now. So if it's the case of chole, or the non-Jew does it for his own benefit, mutar li chol Yisraeli shtamesh leoro. It is permissible for all Jews to utilize that light. Okay? Vuhu hadin laose medura litzarko o litzarech chola. What if he makes a little bonfire, like a little fire, not to warm up by? He did it for his own benefit. It was cold. He lit the fire because he was cold. He wants to benefit. He wants to be warm. Now all Jews can jump in and also benefit from the medura. Or if it was lit for litzarech chola, the chola is cold. And this you can imagine, by the way. You have the days of today, we don't light fires the same way, but we kind of do. Because if you turn the heater on in your house, there is a fire over there. And so if you light that, you cause that spark that then triggers the heater to go on in your house. And it was there's someone sick in the house and they are freezing. They are not feeling well and they are very cold. And a non-Jew, you ask a non-Jew, can you turn on the light? Yankel is terribly sick. He's got the flu. He's freezing, right? So you could ask Yankel in that situation to do that. Now, what about all the other Jews in the house? So they're allowed because the real reason that you're doing this is because the person who has the flu is really suffering. Okay. And then hold on 1 second here. V'yesh osrim, but they're in the situation of the medura. V'yesh osrim in medura. There are those who don't permit the medura, the fire. Mishum de gazrina sharma yara v'shvil. You know why? Because when it comes to a standard fire, right? Think about a fireplace. Well, the guy who has the flu can come sit right here next to the fire. Okay, good. Now everybody else is like, but I want some warmth too. So they say, throw in a few sticks. What's the worst that could happen? Because if you want everybody to benefit, you need a bigger fire. So that might be a Shevet. So some say you can't benefit, that others cannot benefit. because then that may lead to people adding more fuel to the fire. Now, in our situation, with the way the heaters are made today, there is no differentiation, right? The heat goes on, the heat goes on. There's no two ways about it. Okay? So, okay. The Ramah, the next Ramah is very important. I want to do that for the next sort of part of this. Let's go back now to the Mishnah Berurah. Vav. Tanin. Right? What's the status of a katan that they're a chol she'ein bo sakana? So the Ramah here says, the Mishnah Berurah says, Hainu tzrichim harbe. Oh, you can only do this for katanim if they really need it. Really, really. Ababalav hachilo. You don't just get to treat them like a chol she'ein bo sakana unless they really need it. Right? There's some terrible need. Like sometimes, a kid can think that they're sick, or they're not in a good situation. Okay, but really, as a parent, they're fine. Like you're fine, but the child doesn't think that they're fine. So then you have to use discretion here about whether or not you treat them like a chola. If they're like a chola, a child is sick. Okay, then that's not about being a katan. But if the child, is acting in such a way that they are like a chola, then that may be room. There might be room here to say that we treat like a chola. We're going to give examples of this because I want you. This is a little bit like esoteric and a little bit in the air. Like, what are we talking about? So I want to look at the Aruch HaShulchan here for a moment. I think this is the Aruch. No, it's over here. No, it's in my extra comments. Okay, fine. Let's take a look here. So those of you with the extra comments, it's the number 9. You got to turn the page. Whatever else, just listen. Hold your question for just a second here. I'll take it in a second. Number 9. This is amazing stuff here. This is like modern day halachic shilas. Okay. So just listen. For those of you who don't have this, just listen. Kid doesn't have anything. Kid doesn't have anything to eat. I see. Here's this. Here's that. No, they won't eat. They actually are not eating. So it's like a little bit not good, right? Because the child needs to eat. Right? Little kids need to eat. You can't have them fasting. Okay. So shehitir haRamah lekaman. The Ramah is later on going to permit this. That if a non-Jew cooked something for a katan because they had nothing to eat, or maybe let's say there was very little food, by the way, and as an adult I can tolerate it, but the child can't tolerate it. Right? They need to get more food. They're growing. 1 second, Aviva. They're growing. So Kosav Chazon Ish writes, Shafilu b'ra'ev shel zman muat. They're very hungry, even for a little bit of time. Nechshav hakatan l'chol she'ein bo sakana. Have you ever seen children? I'm starving. I'm so hungry. Right? Right? Does that look familiar, guys? Right? So the Chazon Ish says, if you ever see that, go find a non-Jew. Tell them to cook something for the kid. Okay. Now, the ilu, one sec, guys, hold on. The ilu ra'ev shel zman sheregilim lahakpid alav, nechshav sakana lekotan v'afilu Yisrael motor levashel ba'avuro. Now, if it's a certain amount of time where we're actually worried about the health of the child, that even a Jew could do. If there's like a sakana involved, that's a totally different situation. Guys, I need you to hold on. I'll tell you when it's time, okay? Good. So hold on to the question in your head, okay? You could do it. The host, then you'll remember it later. The host of shebizmanenu shemitzuyos machalos v'tinokos, and he added that in our time when there are so many sicknesses, ailments for little children, if we're worried it's going to cause some sort of terrible stomach condition if they don't eat. So then we'll treat it like even if it's a doubt, whether it is a doubtful situation, whether it's a sakana, machal and shabbos v'shila avilei Yisrael. Even a Jew, if it's a suffix sakana, can violate Shabbos for a Jew. You have to, everything is, you have to measure each situation, or take account. I'm not a doctor. Our doctors around the table. I'm not. But if it's a suffix sakana, that's the rule. But even if it's something small, for little children there are exceptions. Again, we try not to rely on them though. If it's something that's not really necessary, then no. Nope. Hold on. V'chein katan shemitztayr. Okay. A katan who is like in pain a little bit. Kelakon yeled katan shenishar levado bebayis kisheimo tzricha linsoa b'Shabbos im aviv laledes bebeis cholim. Okay, I don't know if there's anybody in the situation around the table or on Zoom. Let's say you have a child. By the way, there's a real calculations that Elisa and I did when she was pregnant. How do you deal with Shabbos, going into labor on Shabbos? What do you do? First of all, there's a question about what you do in terms of getting into the hospital. Do you try to minimize the malacha, take an Uber, etc., etc.? What about your kids? Once we already had Yair, and now it was the second child, what were we going to do if we went to labor on Shabbos? It's 3 a.m. What am I going to do?
You call the Uber and you take her, and saving the life sets aside
So
all
what
your.
do I do? What do I do with my 2-year-old? My 2-year-old is not coming with me to the hospital. That's I can't deal with that, right? So what do I do with the 2-year-old? How do it's 3 a.m. By the way, when with her, actually it wasn't Shabbos, but labor started at she went to labor like 4, I don't know, 3:30. I remember Lisa waking me up in the middle of the night. I think I'm having a contract. It was like the middle of the night.
I remember the time.
You remember the time you were born?
You told me once.
I told you. You remember. 11, and that's right. You were only born 11:58 a.m. Correct. So what do I do? So look what he says here. Because if a child is left in the house by themselves, let's say it's a 5-year-old, a 6, 7-year-old, they're like, I'm not comfortable by myself. Mommy has to go to the hospital with dad to, base cholim. So Rav Elyashiv is paskin in this question. What do you do? He said, you know what? They're like a chola she'ein bo sakana. The katan has to stay home. They're going to be scared. 5, 6, 7 years old to stay home alone, terrified. You can tell a non-Jew to drive them to a relative, so that they are comfortable. And also, it puts the mom at ease. The mom who's going to labor knows, okay, they're with Aunt Sally. They're good. Okay? Okay. Now, hold on. Guys. A child who's terrified of the dark. So Rav Nitzim Karlis Paskas, what the child is crying, I don't like sleeping in the dark, I'm terrified of the dark. If they might, their fear was going to lead to them being sick. If you could figure out a way to just reason with your child that the dark is not so bad, then obviously don't call the Nachri. And anyways, by the way, the next part says Vashir Hagil Shel Kotam La'idin Pachad HaKosha. What age is too old to be scared of the dark? So the Ktos HaShulchan says Afilu Shuhu Afilu B'Ktanim B'nei Sheva Shmona 7, 8 years old. Okay, we can deal with that. Still, you're still a little kid. V'Akil Lafira Osein of it. Everything is dependent on the kid. Right? You figure out if they're too old for this, and you got to be like, just deal with it. Okay? All right. So there you go. A little bit of halacha in terms of ktanim being dealt with in such situations. Is it a quick question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Like, if the non-Jew on Shabbos, like he's getting paid the whole week.
Yeah.
He wants to take a break
on
Shabbos, and he turns on the TV.
He
forgets to turn it off.
So the TV is just on because the non-Jew was working. I don't know if you guys can hear on Zoom. A non-Jew working in your house. You paid him for the week, whatever, and they're taking a break and they turn on the TV for themselves to watch on Shabbos because they're taking their break, and so they turn on the TV in the house. They're watching. Then they walk away. They forget to turn the TV off. Next, what was your question? Can you benefit from the TV? Yeah. The short answer is Abba says no. Okay.
Depends on the program.
Right. Look, it's one of those things that you could probably technically say, no, but there are other problems there too, because there's hashmas kol in the house now. There's these sounds which is that are being made in the house, which are not. It's like setting an alarm for before Shabbos, that sometimes it's permissible. What if I could set the TV to go off on an alarm, by the way? Or I could set my radio alarm clock. I'm not saying you could do that. Like you could do that. You know, I know you probably don't have this, but like back in the day, I used to wake up because the alarm in my room went off, like the radio went on, and I woke up because the radio. You know what a radio is? Okay, the radio went off, and I woke up. So can I turn the radio on Shabbos so I can listen to the ball game? I can listen to the Mets game. So these are kinds of things that we generally are not in favor of for various reasons, but in Israel, right? So you should know, like your cousins do this, right? So when there was, Iran was doing what they were doing, right? Over Shabbos, everybody left their TV on. There's a channel that, a radio channel, by the way, a radio channel that only goes on if there's an announcement that needs to be done. So you leave it and turn it on. It's quiet, and then if there's an announcement, so you go to your shelter, go to this, like it goes on. Pikuach nefesh, right? So obviously there are certain circumstances. Of course, you could turn certain things on. There were discussions when back when there was some hurricane was supposed to hit land, I think in Florida over Shabbos. And so the Rabbanim in Florida were saying you should keep your television on a low setting, so you should just be aware of like what's the news, what's going on. So that you are, aware. So, but generally speaking, it's certain things get into the category of like, uvdin dechol. Like, it's not a Shabbos thing to do. It's not Shabbos thing, It's not what we do on Shabbos. So, yes, Aviva's been waiting patiently. I'm sorry. Aviva, go ahead. Ooh, stop that.
And you said that when you're 10, you have to fast on Yom Kippur till 10, and when you're 11, you have to fast the whole day.
Right.
But they're kids.
So there's the mitzvah. So Aviva is bringing up that we were learning in our house. Very good memory. We were learning that for Yom Kippur, a katan, a few years before their bar bat mitzvah, does have to fast. The fact that the year before that, I believe that they have to be mashlim, attempt to complete the fast even. But in the years leading up to it, there is, I think it's like 3 years leading up to that, there is an obligation to at least fast for part of the day. I think I already told you this year, right? This year, right? And this year, Yair's going to fast a couple hours. Okay.
You said when you're 11, you have to fast.
Right, and or 11. I forgot. See, maybe she already remembers the awful day. When you get to 11 already, you have to try to fast. You have to attempt to fast. If you don't make it, it's okay. But that's because of the mitzvah of chinuch. We're teaching you as children how to do this mitzvah, practicing so that when it's real, when you're in the major leagues and you're a bar mitzvah, you'll know what to do. Okay, good question. Good job. That's like a good. That's using the different parts there to connect. Very good, Aviva. Okay, now a couple last points here before we close up for today. I know we didn't finish all the comments there of the Mishnah Berurah. Where is this? I want to find this. I wasn't there. Okay, so let's do the Mishnah Berurah one more thing, and then we'll stop. I thought the Rosh Hashanah had one more thing, but it was about the heater, and we'll get to that for next week. Zayin l'chol Yisrael, that everybody can benefit, all Jews. Sifkat on Zayin and Mishnah Berurah. But why are we allowing, in the case of a chole, I understand that I asked the non-Jew to light the candle for the sick person, that's okay. But why could everyone else suddenly benefit? Won't that cause me to be going to a non-Jew and be like, hey, next time, light the candle? Why? Because here it's okay, because what am I going to do? Make a gzeira that perhaps next time I'll say, can you light a candle for a sick person? Well, here's the newsflash. Shahare muter lomar af lechatchila. You're allowed to do that. The next time there's a sick person, you can ask them to light it. So there's no gzeira that I'm going to say, oh, can you light it because they're sick? That's what I told them here. So if I accustom myself to say to a non-Jew, can you light this because they're sick? Well, that's allowed. So there's no reason to make a gzeira there. The rabbis didn't make a gzeira. Again, Shin Chav Ches is all about the laws of refuah on Shabbos. So maybe Jeffrey, we'll make sure you really show up that week. It's actually very long. It's actually a very long simon about the refuah on Shabbos. Okay. Ches lehishtamesh leoro. I'm allowed to use the light. Afilu hu makiro. V'lo chashin Hashem yarbi bishvilo. The ner leechad, ner lamea. Very important concept in Hilchot Amir L'Nochri. Let's say I'm allowed to use the lights, even if I know him. So even hu makir, the non-Jew, he knows me. We're friends. So he's my neighbor. He's non-Jewish. We have a friendly relationship. I don't have to be worried that just because I had him come this one time to turn on the light, this one time because there was a sick person, that now every time he sees me needing light, he's going to suddenly come and turn the light on for me. He's going to do nice things for me. He's like, oh, he sees, oh, Nebuch, my neighbor friend needs light, and I know his laws, whatever. Even if I know him, we're not worried, Shema Yarba Bishvilo, that he'll add to it, right? This is also in the case, by the way, of the, right? But if he sees, oh, I came into the room, and he goes, because he's reading a book. Forget that there's a sick person. He's reading a book. He lit the candle for reading a book. I come in the room to get something from the shelf, and he goes, oh, you're reading over there. And he strikes another match. Let me turn on 5 more candles. We're not worried he's going to do that. All right? Even if he knows me because he wants to be nice. Because here's the rule. Ner la'echad, ner lamea. Once there's enough light, that's enough light. Once the light goes on, that's a light for one person, and it's good enough light for 100 people. Right? There's a light. A light's a light's a light. Right? And once there's light, there's light. And we're not worried. It's going to go around lighting extra candles for me. There's no differentiation here whether this is done in the non-Jew's house or in the house of a Jew. Okay? The rules are the same. All right. Let's pause here, even though we didn't do Sifkat on test. We'll talk about the next day, which is about this is the next Sifkat on test next week. Right off the bat, we're going to talk about a very practical topic about what happens if it's cold on Shabbos in your house. You're cold and you want to ask a non-Jew. Here's your Shabbos goy situation. Come, can you turn on my heater? I'm freezing, right? People on the couch are cold. So can we do this? Can we not do this? If they light it for themselves, is that permissible then for me to benefit from it? We'll talk more about the case of the heater on Shabbos next week. All right, have a great week, everybody. All right, these are very practical Siman and lots of laws that are very much alive. And thank you for being here. Can't wait till next week.
Thank you.
About coffee. Yes, Richie's question about the coffee, about food on Shabbos made by the non-Jew. Yeah, right. Yeah, I got to get back to you on this one. Yeah, Simeon, go ahead.
Rob, a quick question. I remember much earlier towards the front of this sefer, we were learning about how you react when